Got a couple bangers here for you.
Well, I knew this would be this little like a flipping run in one friends. The only thing about me, why I had to leave you, so that's why I, well, sometimes I figured out a little bit weird and wanted to do podcasts on to what means that my time as a consequence, people would would become, or sure, a certain amount of distancing with close. I've been lucky, I've been fortunate to be supported, especially socially. Life that really needs to live. Sisters have built for me. I would not have been able to do that if ancestors had a leg up in the race. Just because that's how oppression works. That's how colonialism has been working. Breaking generational cycles and turning the tide on behalf of the human race is a pretty big ask and it's a pretty big ambition. But I've gotten this far by being ambitious and by not settling. So I'm gonna have to just keep doing that. I don't know what else to do, honestly. And I can't really believe words about it. As you can tell. But honestly, like work ethic wise, you can convince me about EDI and how false this idea that people will work unless they're threatened to do so by starvation and poverty, that they need that drive to survive and adapt, otherwise they won't be productive members of society and good laborers. I think it's just a lot beyond that. I think at one point it was true, and it was true enough that people can still be convinced by it, especially based on their circumstances, and if their social and physical environment reflects the same truth of that, they can continue to be convinced about that. But I don't think we've actually evolved as a species beyond that, mostly because our resources are no longer scarce, and that happened a long time ago. So this resource learning has really been a fact from a certain social evolution in the makeup of our societies across the world. And it's genuinely a problem that we're going to need to confront collectively. But this question of labor, or no labor without punishment, that essentially just results in overproduction and overconsumption, it really breaks down when we think about volunteers. And what are they doing? What are those volunteers doing? They're trying to make the world better because they like it's a good idea. People are altruistic. We have actually been developing altruism as sort of a skill, evolutionarily speaking. And there have been scientists who have modeled that growth statistically with data points that are relatively objective, historically documented facts. So all of that to say, it's very possible objectively, it's very likely, and all of this objectively. And personally, I would not be alive if I wasn't volunteering to be here. I conceptualized that for myself a long time ago. And sometimes I struggle with it. I sometimes struggle to volunteer to this end. Let me say at a very young age, I can't control the way that these folks shape me. All I can do is try to harness the power I gave me for good. But this idea of volunteering into your life, into the world, into every piece of effort, every bit of labor, every work that you do, doing it with the knowledge that I choose this, that's empowering. That's my bodily choice. That's enthusiastic consent. And yeah, we are going to have to talk about rape culture. Again, yeah, because it keeps coming up. I know, this is just so wild, right? Like every human, 8th grade was a very developmentally important time for me. I mean, I told you a story about Mr. Walker and the way that he sexually abused the boys in my class. In science class, it's a lot. Trying to start me from home for professor. He didn't even do it on purpose, wasn't even trying to hurt me. I was fallout for his real victims. This is not something. Awful stuff. Now, of course, events like that are going to shake our perceptions of reality, and so I don't think my experience was that. Sorry, you just working out. This is a stressful stuff. My experiences aren't unique. I'm one of the most average people. I'm from a suburb of Denver. Like, what I just do with my experiences might be unique, but the experiences themselves are not unique. So yeah, Mr. Walker's abuse of the boys in my school during 8th grade and my accidental participation in attempting to get him free, my introduction to social movements started off really young, but there's another guy there, Mr. Alvarez, years and years and years later, got caught by his wife, who was sexing one of the other girls in his class. That sucks too. He was my social science teacher, and I really liked him. He's really fucking lucky. He got a really good substitute teacher one day, otherwise I would be coming for him for like, you know, just like violently revenge status sort of thing. That substitute teacher really saved the day. Yeah, he was Mr. Conyers, shout out. You were the gorilla at Castaneda when working as a substitute teacher, and you taught me a really cool magic trick that I still use. Usually a magician does not reveal their secrets, but I appreciate you deciding to share yours the way that you did. It really will down for me in my life, in my like mental narrative of self, which is valid and real and exists and personal and unique and not necessarily my audiences to possess. I was trying very hard to demonstrate that when you put something online it belongs to everybody, and it does, but that's the content. I'm looking at the studio right now, in case you weren't sure. The content that I put online is for you to possess. You can do whatever you want with the stuff I put online. I, personally, am not yours to possess. I just want to make that really, really clear because people seem to have a problem with that line. So yeah, rape culture, super important developmental ages such as 8th grade. What was I within 13, yep. Not gender, I don't think, right? Gender doesn't start until 15, depending on anymore. But again, it's not so much for the appropriate age to start probably anticipating being able to fuck me at them 18. So I knew that, obviously. As a 13-year-old girl, yeah, I fucking knew it. And seeing that happen with my teacher, I don't know, I don't want to be insensitive to boys at all, ever, because you're already disgusting, so it's understandable that you're salty about rape culture getting all the attention better than bringing it to you and paying attention to it. Like, your rape is like psychological and existing within power dynamics that your active participation in life brings rape. I'm really sorry that's happening to you. For most of my 8th grade, the part that was important to me, I know it's really hard to keep track of things that matter to me as a woman. The part that was important to me was my friendships. Crazy, right? I know I talked a little bit about finding community in a couple of Harry Potter, and boy did I went to the 7th book release, midnight release at Barnes & Noble. Very exciting stuff. Gosh, all my friends came too. It was a whole friend situation. You know, the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, or The Secret Place by Tom French, or anything where young women are best friends and they're interested in themselves and the worlds that they build together and the world around them. I got to have that. From 6th grade to 10th grade, I had signed in the first place of the episode. And I know I labeled in Liquid 82, they have like 20 albums or some shit, and every single one of them is a banger, and they have every single song memorized, so it's really hard to not label Liquid 82. And if I was going to use a different artist, it would have to, yeah, like, it's the most easily accessible to one. I'll try to not lean on one of the most ubiquitous bands of the entire world, but if I do, I'm going to start going either backwards and get an 82, or I'm going to go forwards and get into Taylor Swift, and really, I want to be chilling around. I can't even pronounce her name. I don't think that's even wrong. I think that's like me being like, ooh, pony clothes, rolling. So, I love that Advice for this song. Oh my god, I listened to that on repeat for 4 weeks because somebody sent it to me saying like, you're cute. And I thought it was fucking cute. What was going down, and still somehow ending up getting fucked. I didn't want that to be rape because then I was a victim and I could not handle myself in a victim world. And many people are like that. Understandably, we don't want to be the victim because it means we're powerless. It means that we have been violated so much that we don't even know what comes after that type of violation. We can't conceptualize it. It's too scary. Of course, that violation happened. Like, whether or not I wanted to consider myself a victim, it was real and it did happen. And there wasn't enthusiastic consent under those conditions, but it also just wasn't that uncommon. It still isn't that uncommon. Like American alcoholism, it's normal. It's normative. This is so frequent, so easily occurring, so locker room discussed that it is not noteworthy. I saw a wonderful meme that was like, oh, you're about to save every woman, and the reply, God, was it Whitney Houston? Oh my god, he was the woman that did all of the fucking telephone. I know, 8 minutes. Yeah, it was amazing. But like, yeah, all women experience this. It's not even noteworthy. It's not even worth discussing. And we do have more pressing concerns with women dying in hospitals because people refuse to treat their incredibly complicated pregnancies. I am an advocate of doulas, death doulas, birth doulas, doula work in a general sense. I think more people should become registered midwives and literally just take the power back in that sense. Community care doesn't just mean arm yourselves and stockpile food. It means train yourself in skills. It means volunteer into the world and decide how you want to participate and show up in it. I remember when I was young, I read The Red Tent by Anita Diamant or something like that, and it's a really great reconceptualization of the tribes of Dan in and around the time of Joseph. In Dreams, Joseph and Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat only focuses on his sister, Bina. And oh my god, wow, so good, so good. If you want like to read Book of Mary, like give yours to like fully nail the Dead Sea Scrolls and then reread the Bible and try to like tease out the truly useful parts of this deeply important narrative that was lampshaded way back and it's continued to be like aggressively police. Read The Red Tent and expand your empathy towards women's embodied experiences. You might learn something. But when I was reading that, it was like, okay, gotta remember that if you press and hold hard on the abdomen after birth, if there's still too much blood, you might be able to help it fly from the inside. And I just sat there like,
serious child.
I think this would be lonely.
Oh my god. Oh, I didn't put the others.
It's funny how apologetic I looked at the end of it. I'm like, yeah, I support moves on. Don't hear me. But like, trying to mentally talk to radicalized white men in the experience of white nationalism with the hope of capturing anybody savable and dragging them back to the like reasonable side of the human spectrum that I'm taking care means I'm gonna probably make some really facial expressions. Like it's genuinely kind of hard to just not be experiencing because I think that is a symptom of sickness. In a very literal sense, we are sick. We are afflicted by rape culture, by this unnatural perspective of undeveloped youth, like our youth. Why is this happening? Are we being conditioned to this somehow? Is there like a small cabal of child rapists who actively benefit from the economy of our jailbait queens? Yeah, there is. 100% there is. And they ensnare immigrant children and will tell you that their fathers are coming to take their job and take their daughters. And they'll call it a good day's work. They'll take any children you won't miss. because you've already learned to dehumanize their parents. But the world is getting smaller, thanks to the way communication network nobody's utilizing properly. We're seemingly all, oh my god. Speed up, people. Go get back your web rings. You deserve Gaia Online all the time. Or Club Penguin, or whatever it was, 70 people on the I don't know, go get yourself. Go find it. You have the power. Go look up digital gardens or something. Gardens? I don't know, follow me on GitHub. I star these things for you. Jesus, empowering people who've been trained to imagine technical literacy as the literal arm of the oppressor is tough work, but those technical tools belong to you. You have inherited them through the pain and the suffering of your ancestors, regardless of who you are. This killing machine has built railroads on your backs and cities on your bodies, and the labor of your energy that was stolen to do that is still labor that purchased those tools. They are yours by right of inheritance and blood, and you deserve to feel empowered over them, including technology of any sort. The oppressed peoples are the ones with the most right to those tools. They have paid the largest price for them. And I know this, and I am trying to pay my debt down so that my children's blood does not get used to pay that debt.
That's how it
And
works.
everybody else is fucking happy. Because the labor man even do right, they wouldn't even exist. Are they even real? Were the dead ever alive if we don't know their names? Yeah, they were. Trees are still real, even if they fall and no one's around here. Fists of Heart is a salute in one of my favorite. So when it comes to considering yourself as a volunteer warrior in the fight for what's right, whatever that looks like for you, warrior culture does have a lot to offer. But for a lot of people, it is deeply tangled with current militaristic endeavors, because of course it is. It's actively being operationalized to disempower you. Warrior culture nowadays, when it comes to real-life military, much of what goes into the American military involves dehumanizing the enemy and ensuring that the soldiers understand that they are a cog in a larger machine, and that their work as that cog, if they can perform their cog duties to the utmost of their ability, will make the entire rest of the machine function. And that's true. That is, it does work. Obviously, it works. Is it the best call? Is it the best route? Maybe. Honestly, yes. The solo aspect is scary. It's very wall-phaser. It's very inachievable. It's very worker bee. It's giving worker bee. Yeah. It's all true. But the question is whether or not those soldiers consider themselves volunteers. Volunteers. They volunteered. They did not get drafted. They joined because they were passionate and they care. And they have value systems or a higher power that they feel supersedes all else, and that they're working actively to realize those values in the world. So to me, the military-industrial complex doesn't necessarily need to get dismantled, or maybe it does, but that's kind of the wrong way to go about it. All of these pragmatic, direct action style of changing the current makeup of the frameworks and the real danger pieces doesn't really need to happen as much as those danger pieces need to decide for themselves what they believe in, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how far they'll go to make sure it gets done. And that is the real warfare that's going on. You're right, psyops is all it is at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, all we are, we're really, I told you that so many times, we're parachuting. The only way to interpret this reality is through your nervous system and through your central nervous system interpreting your sensory input. It's true, it's all true, it's all genuine facts about the world. And so, obviously, with the militarization of police, all of this translates to police and police work. So all of those, no higher education, white boys, usually, I've seen a lot of police officers, I have seen you before, and I'll see you again. I hope, honestly, I would love to see more diversity. In first responders, but in police especially, but those people could actually together collectively change the entire makeup of the system based on what their value systems actually are. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, this desire for authority to imagine a just world, to have someone else make all of the decisions, and for essentially copping out on the overall social welfare of our community is unfortunately very prevalent. It's way easier to just take your paycheck, take the suffering, and then justify your really shitty trauma dumping, trauma perpetuating CPTSD behavior on the fact that every other citizen is also just as authoritarian oriented and lazy and incapable of protecting themselves or their property without you. It's a very easy justification for police officers to have, and unfortunately, most citizenry has not had the opportunity to show them anything different. Of course, that's still being actively oppressed and repressed by those same law enforcement officers and the legal and judicial system in a larger sense. And yes, in the executive branch as well. Indeed, I do feel Trump coming for you. Obviously, I'm trying to compare to me personally, who probably listens to me. I don't know, maybe that's just my ego in my head or something. But my point is, I think I've already made it, and I already forgot what it was, so that's on you. Don't like boxes. And I love you. it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, okay, I'm just changes. Yeah, big fish. I don't think you understand. Maybe I am one who is on again. It's possible. Yep, that one's this week. Hell yeah. Okay. Oh my god. Yeah, it's just the train keeps rolling. And it's not because we're rolling coal. This is a sustainable train. This is a very sustainable train. Oh, is that going during time that I love so much? I'm going, yeah, I don't have too much. Do I combine it too much, or does it work every time because it's true? And I just let it be true. I don't know. You understand? Yeah, gosh, what else should I say? Should I talk about consistency? Oh my gosh, one of the things that brings me the most reassurance ever is just doing the same thing regardless of how I feel. I taught myself that really young when I realized how uncertain chaos made me feel in a way that was like deeply unrewarding, and I really wanted to potentially die, and I didn't want to actually die, so I had to figure something out. And besides the whole like I volunteer life thing, which is great when it works, I was also thinking about routines and what that means and why it's important to have anchoring every time, every day sorts of behaviors. I'm lucky that I got to start lucky. I'm lucky that I was still parenting so young and I got to start that so early. Waking up every morning at the same time of the day, you know, it wasn't perfect. It was something that I was trialing to do. I spent a long time in the middle of high school just trying to catch the bus and get to school early. I just wanted to be there early so I could feel like I was ready for the day, so I could actually get part of my day. That was hard, and it took so much extra time. I was getting at 5. I would get home until 10 p.m. because at that point I was working at Chipotle. And I would leave school at 3, go to Chipotle and work my 7 or 8 hour shift to get my free burrito, and then I would go home. And it was just the way of life, and I loved that. I loved the independence of it. I loved the work of it. And I loved the friends I made. I loved learning a new language because I definitely learned Spanish working at Chipotle. That was the early days of Chipotle, so it was really important to hire Mexicans so that people felt it was authentic for brand purposes. You understand. Fast casual dining requires that type of appropriation as a way to get people around. So yeah, Panda Express was the same way. The problem is, I really do enjoy the exploited, I suppose.
Just exploit Mexican
obviously, it
labor.
has real world ecological impact that we are not taking responsibility for, and that we definitely need to take responsibility
Get them
for destroy our
done
environment.
that.
That's not something true. I talked about the watershed, that the potato situation ruined for McDonald's, but McDonald's can be tied to big energy companies as well, because of course they can. You do not get to be that large of a company making that much money without some kind of fuel. So the fossil fuel industry is definitely below all of that, and it comes right back to Gilded Age oil. Yeah, we don't need to talk about every last historical piece of data that led us here, but I do want to assure you that it exists. So I struggle with this because I work at Chipotle, I work at Starbucks, and I see the value in offering a homogenous experience across potential cultural divides, little islands where people feel that they are almost in a neutral space because that space is the same everywhere. I think there's a lot of value in that, and I think we need to keep that sort of thing when we move forward. We don't need to keep McDonald's, and we don't need to keep Starbucks, but we need to keep coffee houses that provide relatively the same type of experience no matter where you are. Relatively the same type of drink menu. Relatively, right? Like, they don't have the relativism. It needs to come from the local environment. Like, the food should come from the local environment. You should be able to live within your ecological niche and to provide visitors, guests, you are offering guest drive to as a host, to provide them with a space and with nourishment that's actually going to nourish them. That is a very important part of food culture that is healthy, and it's also a very important part of hospitality that is nourishing and restorative. And when we talk about hospitality industry, you're rolling up in combination hotels and food service. And they're obviously very important aspects of human connection, of diplomatic relationships, of community, of the economy, of travel, of the interconnected, interdependent nature of our species. It's just unfortunate that we have allowed these precedents in the form of places like McDonald's that profit off of the rate of the land and the exploitation of the people in order to meet that need for homogenous space in across context and place. That is the part that's unacceptable. And people who don't like it at Starbucks. I loved having an overwhelming amount of ways that I could use your palate, and then working with you in a customer service role to figure out exactly what we needed. And it's going to start your day. In a sense, I was a drug dealer, a caffeine drug dealer. Caffeine is quite the drug. We're all quite into it. So now I'm just I'm not going to stop anymore. I'm going to slow down everything. Please let me keep my coffee. And slowing down comes back up again and then because you cannot speak my mind, have telepathy, or utilize quantum psychology to the fullest extent that you deserve to as a fully actualized human creature. If we're all encouraging each other to go so fast that we don't get to appreciate or fully enjoy the vast landscapes of our own mind. And many people live in conditions to fear the vast landscapes of their own mind. This idea that somewhere in there is a monster ready to come out and hurt your loved ones is a tragedy that so many of us have internalized that idea and that concept, and it's simply not true. There is certainly ways that we hurt each other and abuse each other. We would murder each other at alarming rates, but who else is going to do it, right? Like, I mean, that's our species. Like, we can't imagine villains outside of ourselves in the same way we can't really imagine what heroism is without the context of our own human nature. These narratives that we build are constantly dyadic, yes, but dual. There's always a dual nature to things because you cannot have something from nothing, and energy is neither created or destroyed, and I keep just repeating these axioms, but internalize them. They are real, and you can harness them and utilize them in a way that is genuinely magic without your needing to kowtow to authority in any way. You do not need to make yourself small or otherwise become subservient to an abusive partner And Adam Grant's everything was so right when he compared our U.S. government to an abusive relationship. The people's relationship with fascism is an inherently abusive one. Of course it is. You're a victim of abuse. And the way that fascism treats victims as though it is all their fault and they were asking for it is going to make you not want anyone or acknowledge that that's what this is. But we have a lot of people in victim support nowadays. We have so many people. We have sophisticated tools that helps us combat these types of narratives. The only thing that those people are missing when it comes to the way that their knowledge and skill sets can and will revolutionize the world is your confidence, your trust, your faith that their skill sets in soft work is mighty enough to combat the violence that has been consistently perpetuated against you since before you knew the word violent. I think blame games are an easy way to displace responsibility for what to do next. And I think trying to figure out what to do next is really hard for victims who are suffering from trauma. Going into shock is normal. Psychological pain is felt in your brain in the same way that physical pain is. So if someone has an accident in a manufacturing facility and loses their arm at the elbow, you don't tell them to get over it and get back to work right there, do you? They used to say that, but we became more civilized, didn't we? In the same way, you would never say that to a victim of psychological trauma or damage, emotional abuse, or physical abuse and sexual violence, which is often used as a tool of the abuser. You would never say that. We have grown as people, for better now, as people.
We hope.
Some of us, more than others. Am I right? It's true. It's true. But who am I? Just a lady. Thing, cyborg, non-binary, non-friend. That's great. I stopped scrolling and I just had Photo now, which I love. More memes, please. I am enjoying the resurgence in the meme economy. Really love the seeming return to health that the meme economy is experiencing right now. I do understand, and we will be talking about echo chambers and the fact that I am in a very special little bubble. I get it. I saw Wingman, and yeah, he was a wonderful actor. I know, he did a great job. And so I do understand the way the bubbles and echo chambers work, and how we might not be perceiving, or seeming to be perceiving, the entire rest of humanity. It's very easy when somebody preaches softness or nonviolence or alternative means of constructing your internal and external realities, which takes a lot of work, and a lot of work that you will never be valued for doing. Getting women's labor really is not a thing, right? It's very easy to say that that person is simply out of touch or doesn't understand the full reality of the situation, and perhaps we should we recommend that she stimulate herself sexually in order to no longer be quite so hysterical? Should we offer to do it ourselves? Should we continue to think of women's bodies as being the rightful possession of men, especially in the medical community? Or should we actually just listen to her and think about what she said as independent, autonomous, critical thinkers? Are you even capable of that? I don't know. It's really not my job to figure it out. That's on you. Let's see. Any last words? Oh, I guess if you don't want to do that, which I understand, you're being people now, and in theory, and your boyfriend and your wifey. So if you want to do that, we could walk me up in the wallpaper room where I slowly go insane and imagine that I see a creature hiding in the walls behind the absolutely ugly Victorian wallpaper and desperate to get out until I finally end my own life. I guess that's option 2. That's generally what we've done to creative, thoughtful women who talk too much. So I'll understand if that's what ends up happening to me. We could have an entire girl interrupted session. Hey, put me in one of those super fun institutions that only shows up when you want to criminalize mental health issues or homelessness. No, homelessness is already criminalized. We don't need help with that. Yeah, that's seriously such a problem. How can you make people's bodies illegal? How things a human right? I think it is. I recognize that I'm looking at you like the little girl from the memes, but yeah, that her butt people are really cute. And this is the facial expression I make when I think about treating human beings like less than appropriate, less than something that isn't alive, that we constructed with our own hands. We, again, the collective labor, none of this would exist without all of us. So to act as though the invisible labor or the labor that we have chosen intentionally to ignore is no less real, is to create an illusionary world. The matrix, if you will, I suppose. I really just don't think we need all of these references to get a point across. I think people know. Like, I really think people just know. And it's more of a question of helping them decide what to do about it, and helping them realize that everyone knows that it's impossible for everybody on this earth right now to not be aware of this phenomenon to some extent, because it is real in its consequences, and it doesn't care whether or not you believe in it for it to be real. And I always think about, you guessed it, victims, not being believed. It took a long time. To realize, what that meant for me at the time. because I did like, I really went through it, of course I did, it sounds like a philosopher, but I really went through it trying to figure out like what are the objective ways to define what rape is, so that even if you don't feel like it happened to you, you can know that that wasn't okay. Because in the rape culture, it's hard to know that kind of thing. It's easy to be told that should never have happened, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But to know it in your body is different, and if our society continues to ignore it as a problem, as a recurrent issue, as a symptom of a larger social ill, it's very hard to feel that was wrong, that it shouldn't have happened, we deserve better treatment, that nobody deserves that. Because I've always wanted to see the world be Harry Potter. Ever since I learned about my friends was like, wow, we need to keep this whole friendship thing going into our entire life, and wow, the world's gonna pull you away from me. Supporting female friendships literally because women are considered real. That's fucking lame. They're real to me. Half the time they don't even feel real to themselves, but they're so real to me.
How do you spell
So how do you objectively decide which one's the tree? Luckily, humans are consensus seekers, and we are going to spell one out. Thank you, California, Title IX, and other forms of federal and state level protection for vulnerable folk, as well as grassroots community campaigns and organizing, which really, those are the true heroes for social change and progress, who have actively worked on both acute support and more long-term policy change to rewrite the institutions that hurt us.
Well,
And the general consensus is lack of enthusiastic consent.
well,
Pretty much it, yeah. It's not a hell yes and it's a hell no, brother. And that's usually the type of polarization I appreciate. I am a spectrum lover, and I used to write dubious consent about it, so I dabble in rape fantasy, at least partially as a means of processing my own experiences and my embodied continued experience.
we can
culture.
skip this part, I'm sure.
Okay, well, this is gonna be fun. Okay, well, this is gonna be fun. Where should we begin? My hair is looking rough. I had a shower in a couple days, and the back is starting to like not up really bad. Because I haven't done this before, so it's either gonna be really bad. After a couple days, I'm going to start to get better. I've been laying down a lot too, but this is coming down. You've seen me such this way. I am quite and just very most people are, so I'm not trying to complain or be a complainer, never. There's a gorgeous campaign nearby in one of the works that's called With Your Father. And it's true, like people, much like they should not be legal, should also never be considered like a father. But alas, the type of world we live in is not. Okay, somehow, that works. It's been a pretty intense couple of days. I've talked about rape quite a lot. Intergenerational trauma and such. Just it's all the time. But the show, as they say, must be a good one. I've been in the position which should be something to complain about, really, but people always assume that families are black because of the hair. Not the drop, you know, and that's kind of awkward because when they assume it, they get all the positive, like, things, the cultural credit, you could say, and I'm literally just not, that I know of. I'm a real pitch matter, and so it's really awkward. Like, actually, please revoke that cultural credit you just applied to me, because first of all, it's kind of gross that I only get positives and you get, like, generally awful negatives. Makes sense, yeah. But also, ick. Just huge ick in that kind of treatment. And so when I worked at Starbucks, it was something like my ancestry. She was really insistent and very like entitled to. She didn't really who my parents were. She was a white lady, yeah. So my solidarity for Black experience is really sort of rooted in my hair, literally, and I can't take care of my hair well if that empathy is slacking or lacking. Or I think that's wonderful to do. It's not to say that every coming here gets none of it. It's because I'm struggling with thinking of the motto. It's kind of true. It's more like, I mean, this is already something that makes me interested in my own mind, and you know, we'll go shower after this and get all sorted. But I have a lot of empathy for everyone with this hair. Around having people drag at it, try to comb it, try to straighten it, try to force it into behaving. Not only younger, really, and trying to like make me like them. Trying to make my curls more like girl curly, starting making a re-curling it. Yeah, plenty of stuff like that. I don't think that people do it or thinking of it in terms of race. It was the cultural norm that evolved, the status quo. So So I have a pretty well built-in understanding that normal or sense quote mean light or good. My parents got me to that all my life. And I learned more with some than others. When I was working at Olive Garden, very interesting job. They refused to pay you via direct deposit, or they did in 2012. They refused to pay you in one way. They paid you through like Olive Garden debit cards, and those cards were not like you couldn't use it at an ATM without a $3 to $5 fee. And so I would go to the ATM and I would pay $3 to $5 just to get my full check out in cash, so that I could use it properly. And then I would take that cash and redeposit it into an actual bank account just to pay bills. It was one of the most frustrating things, and I quit, when then because I was like, I don't fucking listen to this. Also, it's really hard to be a hostess at Olive Garden, way harder than my girl. The patrons of Olive Garden are a very specific flavor of entitled. I tell you what. But one time there was a older African woman who, she was a hardest worker. Like, she was the best hostess, even though she couldn't speak English, and she was constantly like buzzing tables and doing all this other side work, and she would make in the extra tips from the servers because she was decent work. And it was great, and I loved her. She always had a good attitude. She had a work ethic, and she didn't bitch like the rest of the hosts on bitch. Like, their whole fucking day was just a stream of complaints, and that's my biggest pet peeve in working on a team is people who sit around just bitching the whole time about whatever the job is. I'm like, you are not helping. But anyway, this woman guy was like that, and I had it in a loose bun at the side, on my side, because I was just trying to like, this mother's not kind of look, falling underwear cuteness. It was hard though, because like there's a lot of volume, and so around my face that I was going for, it was sticking out every which way. And we could have thought about it, but I feel like we're getting to more control. But I've always, because of those early experiences of people taking my scale, I really just prefer to let it go crazy. Like, I'd rather gently untangle than right here on my own, slowly, condition your conditioner and lubricate it, versus anything that hurts or needed. Yeah, harder. Yeah, this other hostess lady, she was texting me about my hair, she loved it, and one day she grabbed it with a bun and yanked on it, like expected it to come off, I think, and in her limited English, she's like, Israel? Is Israel? And I was like, yeah, yeah, it's Israel. And of course I didn't like that. She was curious, she was interested, she probably shouldn't have been so grabby, but she was really used to people just not understanding her. I think it's actually really easy to understand people and what they're trying to convey, body language, again, with that constant undertone of psychic connection that I mentioned. So it really takes effort to block people out or to make them unheard. And under current societal conditions, that effort is often largely imposed by institutions or systems, very inflexible and rigid systems. But it's helped along by people who default to those norms and by people who find it more convenient to simply not hear or notice others, so they don't. And so with her yanking on my hair, I knew, having experienced this all my life, having seen it all my life, having been working in food service or IT since I was 15, I had to get like a special dispensation from my school authorizing me to work. Like, I have been in the field. and so I know relatively well, but like, I also know how much those with the privilege to not hear things simply don't. And so her tugging at my hair, I didn't take that personally. She was used to making herself understood when she really needed to be or wanted to be understood. And so she actively was trying to connect with me and my nervous and start conversation. And in that moment, I realized like how lonely it must be to be the hardest worker on the team that everyone else can't communicate with everyone else. And then also that she was genuinely just trying to connect with me and talk to me. So I didn't take it personally. I was like, oh, my hair's really want to see, so we sat there and we talked about my hair. And it was like a week later I quit because, oh my god, I could not deal with that type of bullshit. But we're starting this way today because we're going to talk about Greek stuff. I'm pretty sure that it actually comes from the Greek in my birth mother, although I can't be sure. At the very least, it's the lore that I've been telling myself. And it's important because we are getting into the Greek of it all today and tomorrow and next time. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Greek goes hard, really. And this has to somewhat go back to all roads lead to Rome, all these usually white men thinking constantly about the Roman Empire and everybody making fun of them. Like, that was them collective consciously in a like dry and slower way, realizing and copying some consciousness surrounding systems of inequality and specifically colonialism and how far back it goes. And unfortunately, those people don't have as much of a fleshed out historical narrative for the entire history of the human race to fully conceptualize that within the broader context of our species. But I kind of feel, mostly, I say kind of because obviously it's not perfect, but I have been really attempting to patch together some sort of coherent narrative that could me back to our first climbing down from the trees near Sahara.
Alright, baby.
And a little bit of information, and I'm certainly not an expert. I'm just, again, I've worked quoting this in a way that is something useful, and yeah, I'm using women's graphs to do it. My understanding is essentially saying that you can't necessarily trust your interpretation of your sensory input automatically or automatically. It needs to be filtered for some sort of, I don't want to say decision-making schema, but some sort of logical internal structure that you have built or created and understanding of in the world. Yeah, I kind of particular journey to my own thing, you're right. But these ideas that there's something beyond the beyond, something in the real physical realm, are not in. And Greek philosophy at the time is, we're gonna travel back in time a little bit. I think I've already mentioned the way that Middle Ages Christianity in the UK, or what's now the UK, Ireland, France, a little bit in Ireland last time, France, Germany, and Italy, especially, we're very, and Northern Africa, we're very protected. I'm sorry, I can't remember these. Carthage, it was Carthage, where, Carthage, I'm sorry, it's a bad pronunciation. The monastic life has had a history of protecting academic knowledge, especially after the burning of Alexandria. Theology is one of the few ways you can beat it during the Dark Ages. White Western thinkers see how hard it is to apply today's labels to yesterday's evils. It doesn't quite work. You have to understand those people in that context, and depending on how much historical knowledge you have, or how much more you know, or what kind of more you know, it's going to be very difficult to have that. I think they call it cultural relativity, and be able to apply it contextually. And I'm not doing the best job. I'm just trying to weave this story together in a way that's going to clear to everybody. But before the Romans, when it was Greece, this work of natural philosophy is the origins of modern day science, in the same way that their political means of organizing themselves in this federated city-state, the collective of some sovereign countries that agree to have a larger national identity in order to rebuff Persia mostly, but in people, I think, but different outside threats. And so that is largely what American government is based on. So very important knowledge and content, and it is celebrated. Greek knowledge in general is, from a psychic perspective, a psyche perspective, is genuinely kind of difficult to access. I am lucky that I have friends who, with full sincerity, worship the Greek pantheon as pagans, because it would be much harder for me to access my specific special interest area of Greek philosophy, natural philosophy, which is ultimately governance. Because I was a kid that took it very seriously, and I said, like, living in the University of Athens, and gave me the whole feel for the American governmental system, and was right there with everybody, and we were being really awakened to the level of injustice that most of our people, or the people who live in land that is subject to American law, whether or not they are official citizens or not, legal citizens. I'm putting quotes on because I think if you live in land and you're subject to its laws, then you're a citizen. It's insane to me to subject people to law without giving them that right, and that is the Greek in me. That is the part of me that read Aristotle's Credo and fell in love with Socrates and said, wow, I want to be that guy. Like, I literally just want to be that guy that stands on the street corner and asks people questions and uses their kind of method to improve society, because that's what he did. He essentially took issue with modern day learning model, as I also have with the American public education system, obviously. He took issue with that learning model and said, I believe that people are more capable of much more than we are giving them credit for, and that our society will benefit from the wisdom of us being raised up. And like Jesus, there have been plenty of prophets and great thinkers over time who have considered this as being the solution to our social ills, and it has traditionally proven to be the solution to our social ills. So I have to start wondering if there's like an outside force actively attempting to restrain us in some way. That gets into the conspiracy theories and the Zing thing, and at that point, like, maybe we should trust our zoo caretakers. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe there is a time for teenage rebellion and a process of self-actualization from adulthood that no animal can stop themselves from reaching into. But people with their habits, but interestingly, that's a lot of rock in one place, and it's interesting because computers are essentially like a rock that electricity utilizes. It's hard not to go all themes about everything, it really is, but trying to keep the mystery down here. Yeah, my special interest when it comes to Greek is all about the style of governments, unitive governments. You might have seen the Middle case, they have Aristotle's Trivium government. Did I read it? What I didn't read was a significant amount of this, a fair amount of this, and half of this. And I continue to reread them because books, really great way to remember stuff. I was so lucky again recently when I said I remembered everything that they ever see. That's not really true. I don't have the photographic memory, I think. It doesn't really work that way because that would be way too much information to have just like hanging everything in my head. It's more like I know I'm a good researcher and I remember the paths that helped me get to the information the first time. And so as long as the constellation is still present somewhere in the world or in my mind, I can retrace my steps and recall the info. And I think that all humans are perfectly capable of that. Most of them just have too much like trash and other completely unnecessary information that they store in their heads because they are afraid and they think it's important, and they're holding on to it because they will need it someday in the same way that our parents do. So that's, I don't actually know a whole lot about hoarding in a broad enough way. So sorry to say it that way, because maybe it's not the whole we need it someday something. But it's super normal. Like, it's just everybody does that, and everybody definitely does it with their psychic space, with their cognitive space. And I can say psychic space with complete sincerity, not thinking of like crystal ball psychic, but thinking of ancient Greece, and the difference between the psyche and soma, or body and mind. And then my more recent education here in California really drove home in a logical fashion with real empirical evidence that my brain isn't working, and despite how black box it feels, due to the fact that there's not really like nervings inside of your brain in the same way that there are sensory nervings in your reasons, like throughout the darkness. So you can't like feel your brain, which confuses your system. So like it's like a black hole kind of, not really a black hole, but this goes back to every intelligent thing I said at one time, that I was clearly just quoting, so it wasn't even said it. But how you see a bird on a moonless night that flies through the sky, you have to look for the places where it's lining up the stars. So if you're searching for the outline of a flying creature in motion as it's moving through the sky, and what you're looking for is the absence of light rather than the light, right? And that is a hard thing for folks. It really helps if you get into art and you teach yourself some basic, really basic like sketching rules, because that's all about looking for light and where light lands, and also where it doesn't land. I feel like I expanded my understanding of this quite a bit by doing a lot of typography shading. So in whatever way you want to look on there are plenty of avenues. And this goes back to my love for Euclid's first proposition, where I had a like there are many ways to come upon the same truth, and they're all valid ways. The thing that tells you it's invalid and unacceptable is your system, usually, or the preferred method of learning that your system suggests where it loses. So there are many ways to the same truth, and really confidence is an important aspect of that, is being confident that your methodology is sound for you. It's fine. You see examples of yogis or other meditative or experimental drug users who have come to some really interesting, profound, that turns out to be accurate and scientifically verifiable via empirical methodology truths, and they continue to be true, whether or not, whatever we use to get there. Again, humans love consensus, so it's this ancient Greek style in larger way of coming into the Colosseum and everyone having their moment to speak and to talk and say their piece and collectively coming to consensus on what to do and what the truth is. That is just human. It's not just Greek. It is a survival mechanism from our younger days. It's just a means of understanding the world. Like, we need it to be verifiable with each other. And if it's not, then it doesn't track, because it can't be used by us. And we love utility. We want people to use it when things work, when things can be used. And generally get the progress. We like technological advancement. We love to understand the world there. And when we don't, it's usually out of fear. So we talk about the crisis, we're like, hey, wait, guys, I think maybe the Earth goes around the sun more than the other way around. And everybody be like, no, fuck you, Copernicus, absolutely not. And Galileo would then be like, actually, he's right. And everybody be like, yo, Galileo, you're excommunicated, buddy. Church does not agree with that. There's a very long history of people in power saying that they like power so much that the elevation and evolution of the species gets held back because information gets suppressed, and knowledge gets suppressed, and learning gets suppressed, and education gets heavily controlled. So I have been a very anti-authoritarian kid my whole life, mostly due to personal issues that really have nothing to do with authority, and more just like always wanting this like freedom and control, and feeling constantly in control, even by people who really have my best interests at heart. I've been a combative with an anti-authoritarian person my whole life, and I've been attempting to curb the impulse to be combative for combat's sake, and to really change my behavior so that I can be a part of the world. And again, this goes back to me realizing that friendship is awesome, and I would love to have a community of friends and an awesome social support network for the rest of my life. When I was quite young, it was my girlfriends, it was me 13 previous years, but wait, let's that girl activity there. You are this girl, I'm so sorry, I'll take you. But it was a really important time for me, and when I realized just how much this really is women, I was obviously pretty engaged, and I was also like very dedicated to changing things so that my kids, or so that I personally, could grow up in a world where female friendships are normal for girls that age. Like, I had this super unique experience. I don't think most people got to have 7 or 8 best friend like girl gang situation during that time. Like, it was amazing. But I also don't think most people really understand the world through the perspective of girls or women, and so it's really hard for most people to like. It has been difficult for me to merge this love of ancient Greece and what I have gotten out of the governmental structure and the natural philosophy that I've read, and the history of Western philosophy in general that I've worked really hard to both unearth and internalize the parts that I thought were incredibly meaningful and valuable. And part of that process has been the exploration of theology from an academic perspective, but also in a spiritual way. It's done with a good faith argument. You can't adopt philosophy and adopt ideology without coming with good faith. And since I was on a hunt to find ideology and philosophy that would help me interpret the world in a way that I felt was best for the world, for my world, for the world I want to see, it was a lot of work, and it did involve theology, and it extended like a huge amount. So I have a fair amount of oh, cute. That's just lovely. What is this? That is a belief. I have great teachers. I was actually really frustrated with this teacher because I'm pretty sure he offered me to not fail me in exchange for like a sexual favor. He closed the door and then gave me the spiel about how I was going to fail and left spaces for me to fill, and I didn't fill them. I failed my class. But when it comes to the development of my confidence in the things that I learned, failing my classes have been great for me. It really has, because the fact that I continued anyway with purely volunteer work, that was me being like, no, I want to learn that thing, and then growing this appreciation and understanding that just because I didn't get a grade on it doesn't mean I didn't learn it. So that sort of thing was ultimately very good for me. But again, I have plenty of critiques on the American education system, and I'm fairly confident it's not just America that is suffering from this kind of thing. So, a brief introduction to theism and theistic arguments, because we're going to need it as we go backwards and forwards in time through philosophy. And we are starting I feel like I should start with history too, because ultimately this is an arc that is working up to discussing Israel-Palestine conflict, which is the currently relevant one. And I don't mean to be dry or frustrating or even incorrect in setting the stage for this, but I do think it's important to historically contextualize what's going on here much further back than most people have any time to try to understand through the means. And I think I have a very good sketch in my head of what that historical narrative really looks like based on the variety of different sources that I've worked to access and channelize. So I feel I might actually have been shot at educating the general audience about the surrounding information of this current conflict in a way that actually be useful. I don't know if that's true, but I think it's my job, if I have the knowledge, to give it a shot. And there's one other book that I went to grab for that particular story. But at least I know I will struggle to retake it. So this goes back to the difference between Istanbul and Constantinople, and it goes back further than that. I could say the Indus Valley, but it's almost a cop-out at this point to go all the way back to that. Everything ultimately goes back to the Fertile Crescent and the rise of Ur. So it's not like fair to keep blaming Mesopotamia, and I saw that a lot as scholars were working to unearth this narrative. I could see the ease in which jumping back to Mesopotamia and Cuneiform Hammurabi's code was for anchoring, and that's great. Like, it's not like having anchors is bad, but I don't want to drag this story that far back. I do want to keep us in the present ultimately, and rapidly updating people's confidence in their own ability to critically think about these topics. And usually the reason people get washed away in the tsunami of media that occurs around big events like this is because they don't have anchors of historical narrative that they have no confidence in to feel certain in the things that they know. And that's because the education system sucks, and you're not supposed to have anchors in history. The common person is not meant to have anchors in history, which are my anchors, yes. We know this through reading Homer, right, and Herodotus, and some of the first historian attempting to, in an archaeological way, and it's the teachers who oh my god, wow, I did that. Fuck yeah. We have the same love for Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. As did Miss Speeds, my advisor. Yeah, it's a part of what makes us human, it's a part of what makes us passionate, it's a part of what makes us move through the world, and scraping my way into one of the best education systems in the country through shared tenacity and willingness to give up and genuine passionate interest in academia and methods of inquiry that are from consensus, truly empirical and rigorously tested methodology that produces results that can be replicated. Like, I love science, and I have always loved science. I just refuse to let science be divested from art or from religion, because they are obviously deeply intertwined. They are all methods of searching for meaning in a world where we get to apply meaning. We apply meaning haphazardly if we want. It doesn't make it truly the meaning of life, but we are always seeking this meaning, this greater sense of meaning. And something that I gained from my time in the psychology department was this idea of terror management theory, and the fact that human psychology is often built around this fear of uselessness or the terror of unexistence or inevitable death, mortality. And that's so much of our decision making, so much of our means of constructing the way that we perceive the world, our ideology, is designed around this fear and managing that fear. And that spoke so truly to me in my lived experience of life, that this fear of death is ultimately going to determine, from a in the future sort of way, going to determine our present. We talk a lot about the way the past determines our present, but we rarely discuss the way the future, or our perception of the future, determines our present. And that is another aspect, getting back into physics, of the way of predicting behavior. From the quantum physics perspective of life, the future events may in fact actually be the past, depending on which part of the donut singularity back in the black hole entropy, slow death, heat death, cold death of the universe that is happening. It's an infinite thing, and it happens infinitely, and it goes on infinitely. So we get back into some paradox. Can you cross infinity? No. However, somehow you do still cross an amphitheater, even though it is technically enclosed on infinity. In the same way, your thoughts are technically infinite. Does it feel that way? Sometimes. But if you were standing at the recipe of the death of the universe, right, in Futurama or whatever your chosen cartoon for exploring the galaxy is, maybe it's Rick and Morty. But say you and the characters are now standing at the edge of that black hole singularity, the whole universe is about to collapse back into itself, and at that point in time, the beginning of time is going to be closer to you, and it's going to be right in front of you as your future than the beginning of time, your time, is to you from wherever it was in your past. So starting to think about time, timelines, and history, past, present, and future, less in this deeply linear 1.2 by 3 point sort of way, the arrow of time as only ever moving forward and never moving backwards. Try to start thinking of time as a little bit more timey-wimey. Thank you, Dr. Who. It's your work there, hugely educational. Oh my god. Just for everybody to have a grade on scientific advancement, Dr. Who really helped out. The problem ultimately too for consumers of entertainment content that genuinely does educate you on science is that you don't have a whole lot of confidence in the science that you just got educated in. And to me, and to most educators I've ever met, that is more of a problem of your confidence in your critical thinking skills and your ability to critically think and sift through a heap of knowledge for the stuff that hangs together versus the stuff that's bullshit. And that's part of my my hope from this channel is to be able to educate in a way that empowers you as a critical thinker, gives you better media literacy, better literacy in general, but mostly just helps you feel confident about your own ability to interpret the world because you genuinely are fully capable. And this illusory idea that there are just some people who are simply smart and then everybody else who just does everything else is a artifact, a holdover, a intentionally divisive operation mechanism of a system of oppression that only benefits from intelligence if a small group of people are allowed to be intelligent, academically authoritative, or in any way considering a reputable source. So ideally, we have a world full of leaders who are confident in their ability to interpret whether something is a reputable source or not, or whether that information that source is giving you is good information. And in order for that to happen, we need to communicate with each other and definitely with people who perhaps don't have a whole lot of academic competence as though they are intelligent. And that is harder for some than for others. Anywho, where was I going? I just get off on these bits, you know? Yeah, no, not trying to shade on the California education system. It, by and large, is doing an amazing job. Wish other systems in the country allegedly had service about the potential totalitarian direction you could be going in with all that system of dominance organization you got going on at the levels of the administration and making financial decisions. Not impressed with that at all. But I know I am, right? Otherwise, I would be me. So, getting into the theology of it all is our next step. Because as I just said, fear of death, searching for meaning, huge motivator, biggest motivator we have, searching for meaning, making sure that things feel like they have meaning is a very important part of us not killing ourselves, and that is a struggle for many of us because under systems that intentionally dehumanize everybody but a very small group, it's going to feel like meaning is a little harder to find. So let's dig into it from a somewhat fresh perspective. I will tell you my thought process as a young meaning searcher. I know I told you about when I was 13 and was those things asking what the meaning of life is, and I said have fun, still totally mean that. But I continue to try to develop a larger scheme for why we're all here, what are we all doing, what does it all mean, where are we headed, is there a compass? And as I think I mentioned, I was raised a Lutheran Christian, if anything at all. My mom was very open-minded, and any interest I showed in any religion, she supported me learning more about. So around that same age, early adolescence and late adolescence, I was educating myself not only on Christianity, but all of these various other ways of thinking about the world, thinking about God, thinking about magic. I really dug into Wiccanism and paganism for a while, but it just seemed so inaccessible to me from a broader cultural perspective that I didn't want to limit myself that much. So I explored the things I loved, as I mentioned, taking naturalism, for example, and I went with the things that worked for me, like worshiping equinoxes. But I had to check. I was like, are we there? No, couple days still. But I left the rest. I was like, ooh, I really can't get behind a deity with a name or a deity at all, especially a singular one. I don't see that in my life. And I know I've talked a lot about Vedic teachings. I've brushed a little bit on the middle path of Buddhist philosophy, Four Noble Truths, and the illusion of desire. That particular historical timeline is very interesting because right around the same time that Buddhism, that Jainism was branching off of Vedic Hindu teachings, and Jainism was traveling and turning Buddhism as it met different areas further east. It was also, in a different way, spreading west into the Mediterranean area and, not so much Mediterranean, west and north into what we call Middle East, and picking up interest in the community in the form of Jesus' return as a result from the gap that we all know where he went. Most theological scholars at this point that I know of, could be very wrong, it's been a while since I was digging into this, but they speculate that he was traveling into the Indus Valley and discovered and encountered ideas relating to Vedic teachings through the sort of prophet studying of Jainism, which is a bit of a combination of different ideas from Hindu philosophy and kind of that refutation of desire was sort of the big thing coming out there. So there's this interesting influence on Jesus of Nazareth at that time, and what I found so interesting as I was learning all of this historical theological information is that Jesus is considered a prophet in Islam. He's just not the saving prophet. So I thought that was really interesting because up until that point, my understanding of Islam was between powers and terrorists. I think that happened when I was 10 or 11, and I got pulled out of school, and somebody gave me Mickey Mouse ears for some reason. So I have this really strong association of Disney for no reason. It was totally coincidence, and the Twin Towers, and George W. Bush, of course. But that morning, watching it happen on the news before school, because I think there was a certain amount of shock, right? So I still went to school as though it was normal, but my mom blew me out of school. All kids, school decided to cancel, essentially. We made it through half the day, and the school was like, okay, everybody go home. This is too much. We don't know how to deal with what's happening. But seeing those towers get attacked that morning, I wasn't impressed. At a young age, I had already become desensitized to the violence I was seeing on the news. So for me, I was like, why are you so upset, Mom? There's always violence on the news. Why does this one upset you? There's always explosions and people dying and thousands of people being crushed to death under brick and mortar, why does this one bother you? And of course, I got older and I realized, like, oh, because it's American soil, it's American people, it's our country, and it was a direct attack, seeming direct attack from a terrorist Al-Qaeda group. But at that time, that was all I knew of Islam. So when I was studying this in-depth exploration of theology through high school and then into my early 20s, I was surprised to find that Jesus was considered a prophet in their scripture. And I read the Quran, and I was, well, I skimmed the Quran, please don't quiz me, but it looked pretty similar to the King James Bible with the expected edits, the kind of edits you would expect knowing the context of the King James Version in the first place. And then learning also about like Gutenberg Press and the Bible being first one that printed and then there's 99 thesis. I was learning all this stuff around the same time. And the story of Muhammad and the spider in the cave was super interesting. I love that Muhammad's like wife and relations had such huge roles in the story of his prophetic rise. I thought that was cool to see women representation. And much later, I learned that there was a period of time in Islam where women who loved other women, or Sapphic Muslims, were elevated, essentially, not elevated, what's the word? I'm trying to say renovated, but that's not the word. Admired and enjoyed by male scholars and authors as being better lovers of women than men could ever be. And I thought that was gorgeous. I was like, hey, those are some guys who know what's up. But, and that's specifically a book called Untold, if you're interested. But that story, especially for queer perspective in the historical narrative of theology, is something I've intentionally teased out over time because it's easily erased. And it's one reason that Greek is so easily accessible to me because of my early childhood as a tomboy and the ease in which I relate to men-loving men relationships. I find heteronormative relationships to be very accessible, as bad as that can be, because oftentimes it is a legal power dynamic exploitative in relating, and it is like a genuine model that still exists in our military and our policing, in our political structure. So very problematic. For a lot of reasons, but it's very accessible to me as somebody who is not actually a man and who has written an extensive amount of men fiction or fan fiction. I had no trouble emotionally relating to that, and so it's very easy to access Greek statesmanship. Getting far afield, however, back to theology. Learning the actual verifiable, from a primary source, documentable story about theology or belief systems is how I contextualize those philosophies for myself while making decisions about what I believe. I'm very serious person to take things very seriously. It's, again, the in good faith argument. I would not be able to move through the world or have gotten as far as I have if I hadn't been adopting ideas and philosophies in good faith, which means, like, you have to contextualize them, give them the cultural relativity they deserve, and then understand them within their context. And the same way you have to do that with people. That's that reflexive humility that I was talking about when it comes to therapeutic practices. Like, understanding people within their context and then relating to them is a necessary part of getting anything actually done. So I'm always wondering, like, why do so many people not want to get something done? Why are so many people actively avoiding empathy, avoiding learning about one another, avoiding educating themselves about the context of the topic, and instead of actually doing any genuine work in good faith, are sitting there just fighting at each other for no reason? And, like, control yourselves. Like, no, we're animals, but we don't have to be that bad at, like, hurting each other. and there is my internalized idea that the base animal nature of humanity is to snap and fight. That's not necessarily the case. And I'm trying to keep that one up because I don't think that's true. I think that it's just a natural thing that we're going to do under pressure. And we're under incredible amounts of systemic pressure, so fighting to each other is what the dog would do if you were stressing them out and then actively putting them against each other. So I shouldn't be surprised that the human counterparts are doing the same. Dogs are just wolves that we made more like ourselves, not the other way around. Anywho, keep saying that, but back to philosophy and the historical narrative of all faith systems, which, like, okay, like, do we really go that far? And I will add that my understanding of Eastern faith is very limited. It has either been picked up from cultural influence that I've encountered or sought out through fiction, or just genuine positive intergroup contact myself in the world, or very recently through one Asian philosophy class where I read the Tao and Meditation and got some textual updates on things, but it is by no means as robust as my understanding of Western philosophy, and I also can't put it into the same, like, framework or language as I can do for Western philosophy because they are different languages and frameworks. So attempting to understand them, it stays mostly in the geometrical shape of existence here because it just doesn't translate super well to Western frameworks, and it's not supposed to, I don't think. So keep that in mind. I've now essentially almost done 2 entire episodes prefacing this topic, but it is a big topic, and like I said, we are ultimately going to talk about the Israeli-Palestine conflict, so I really want to contextualize that conflict, that modern-day conflict, with all of the history I can possibly give it. But again, with a good faith, like, I want to have a genuine impact and be helpful. So my understanding of Islam is incredibly imperfect, but I do want to make it clear that I understand it is not inherently a violent religion, and that the illusory it's not inherently a violent religion anymore as in Judaism or Christianity is. More so, it's been the history of violent secular conflict that has pigeonholed it in that way, especially in the mainstream narrative in America, for reasons that I think are becoming more evident every day. So, yeah, the oil in the Middle East being the big one. again, that fossil fuel industry and the gilded age and roaring 20s, right? Here we are again. One of my history teachers in my couple decades worth of education lamented once that,
Got a couple fingers here for you.
well, I think this would be lonely. This whole everything. But I was spoiled pretty rotten. We love your friends. Yep. It's as lonely as I thought it would be. That's why I studied movie. That's why I